Roll call, please.
Director Chacon? Director Hellman?
Here.
Director Origi?
Here.
Director Hawkins?
Here.
Director Oscui? Director Vasquez? Director Camacho Rodriguez?
Present.
Director Apodaca?
Present.
Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for allowing us to be in such a country forum as we have the freedom to do. We thank you for all the blessings that you have bestowed upon each and every one of us. We watch over all those that did not make it here today. And give us the knowledge and the wisdom that we need to govern Central Basin. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I have been asked to do by special request, a rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance. The gentle breezes with lingering caress kiss the folds of no other flag which compare with it in beauty. There is no such red in budding rose, falling leaf, or sparkling wine. No such white in April blossom, crescent moon, or mountain snow. There is no such blue in woman's eye, ocean's depth, or heaven's dome. And no such pageantry of clustering stars and streaming light in all the spectrum of the sea or sky. Our flag is bright in color, brilliant in courage, and firm in faith. To these let us add our sincere pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated.
I just want to add that I've known Mr. Reed many years, and there isn't anybody I know that can present a Pledge of Allegiance.
And I am not a native-born American. I am a naturalized U.S. citizen.
Walk-on items or presentation.
We have no request to speak, no work on items. We do have 4 presentations. The first one is a very special one. Chief of Operations of Metropolitan, Mr. Jim Green, is retiring, and Kevin Wadia would like to have Mr. Green come up and read a proclamation for him.
Good morning, Mr. President. Many of you know Jim, but I was one of Jim's first bosses at MWD. He's been there for almost 31 years, and he's retiring as Chief of Operations, and so we're pleased to be able to honor him, respect him today. And I have this beautiful plaque that Tammy prepared, and there's a lot of whereases on there. And they're all very impressive about Jim's 30-plus year career. But I'll just read the last one. Whereas he has always been responsive, thorough, courteous, and acted with impeccable integrity in his dealings with Central Basin Municipal Water District and all other metropolitan member agencies. Now, therefore, on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Central Basin Municipal Water District, the undersigned hereby congratulate and commend Jim Green for his years of outstanding and distinguished public service. Signed and dated today by President Apodaca. Mr. President, would you like to add any comments? Like that.
On behalf of the board, thank you for your commitment and dedication to the metropolitan and to the water community of Southern California.
Let's get a picture.
Would we like to come down and do a photo op with Jim Green, with the board, if we can get together for a photo opportunity?
With all of us?
Yeah, all of you? Yeah, that'd be okay. Thank you.
say a few words.
Yeah, Mr. President and other board members, a real honor today. Thank you so much. I just really appreciate it. I've enjoyed my 31 years in the water industry, and I've certainly enjoyed working with Central Basin and all the other member agencies, and I hope to see you again in the future. I also want to recognize Kevin Wadier, one of my first bosses at Metropolitan. Thank you, Kevin. Kevin Hunt, your general manager, just a wonderful person who I've learned so much from, and Tammy Hurley. I appreciate very much working with her too. So all the staff at Central Basin has been wonderful, and I thank the board. Thank you very much.
Okay, next, Dorette Lambie. Dorette, believe it or not, just finished her 4th year with us, so Dorette, thank you very much. Next, Cecilia Pulido. Cecilia, believe it or not, has finished 7 years with us. So I hear what she's playing. And last but not least, Joseph Legaspi. I have a special award for Mr. Legaspi because he's had a heck of a over the last several months, working collaboratively with the staff and other agencies and legislature. Joseph won representative from Washington, D.C. at ACWA Legislative Days and Sacramento at ACWA Legislative Symposium, Metropolitan Water District at the Central Basin Purveyor Workshop. Successfully worked with the staff of Assemblywoman Garcia of Metropolitan Water District and Metropolitan member agencies to develop language for AB 591, preserving Central Basin's metropolitan seats. The language approved by the Metropolitan Board by a 36-1 vote. So, we did a presentation on the polling for the partial charge and purveyor workshop, prepared detailed talking points, which I used Friday up in Sacramento on our AB 71 cost allocations at the Commission on State Mandates. This was a heck of a workload over the last 6 weeks. Joseph completed these assignments with expertise, collaboration, and integrity, and for that, we'd like to give him a standing ovation. Thank you. That completes the presentation.
Item 4, the MWD activity.
All right, good morning, directors. A couple of updates at Metropolitan Water District. One of the bigger items that were on their agenda this past month, they approved participation in the Lower Basin Drought Contingency Plan. The participation in the drought contingency plan will be in effect between the year 2020 through 2026, and this would assist in reducing the risk that Lake Mead elevations would decline to significant elevations that would prompt curtailment of water deliveries to California. Metropolitan participation would represent nearly all of California's water contribution, which includes Imperial Irrigation District's share, up to 250 million acre-feet. Earlier this month, the Imperial Irrigation District, an agency who holds some of the oldest and largest water rights to the Colorado River water, announced that they would not approve the drought contingency plan unless the federal government could agree to provide them with additional funding to assist them with addressing issues to remedy the Salton Sea. So this action that Metropolitan Board took is from nearly all of California contribution before the deadline that was provided by the Bureau of Reclamation to the lower basin states to approve a drought contingency plan, which was March 19th. So that was good news for all the lower basin states. Metropolitan Governance on AB 1220 by Cristina Garcia. The Metropolitan Board expressed to support, if amended, AB 1220, titled Metropolitan Water District, and more information you'll hear about this from Joseph later in this meeting. And then lastly, on state water project supplies, Metropolitan has been able to get up to 50,000 acre-feet of Article 21 supplies. These are supplies that, due to heavy storm conditions, they become available to state water contractors, and Metropolitan has been able to secure that supply. The Department of Water Resources just announced allocation for state water contractors up to 70% of supplies. That's up from 35%. So this year is all about storage. They're trying to take as much as they can and doing really well with that. That's all I have. If you have any other questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Hillman, do you have any comments at all about the treatment over at the Mitchell Water?
No, I just want to say that we were both welcomed very graciously, and it's a great opportunity to work with such a good organization, and look forward to moving forward with our interests as Central Basin. It was a great opportunity. I want to thank everybody.
I just want to add, this is my third time back at the Met, and they were quite pleased for me to be there. I wasn't sure of the reception, but Geraldine and everybody there really was very receptive, as well as some of the older staff that I've known through the years. So me and Mr. Hillman will be working together. Consent calendar. Do you have anyone have any of the items here to be pulled? If not,
Mr. President, unusual step, but I'd like to pull item 7 if I could.
What's that?
I'd like to pull item 7 and present on it for a minute.
Item 7?
Yes, let's see.
Okay. If not, do we have a motion to approve?
Move the balance.
Second.
Second. Roll call.
Director Chacon, Director Hellman,
Aye.
Director Reedy,
Aye.
Director Hawkins,
Yes.
Director Osculi, Director Vasquez, Director Camacho Rodriguez, President Apodaca.
Aye. Item 7.
Okay. Yeah, it's unusual for staff to try and pull something, but item 7 is the fiscal year budget performance report, and I didn't want to leave the board with a misleading feeling of how things were going. The report points out that we have an expected 1.2 million annual shortfall over our budget, but we were still going to be making our debt coverage ratio. However, since the beginning of the year, we've had a number of things happen. We've had almost $500,000 in unanticipated settlement costs and legal costs. We've had a very wet winter, which has depressed sales by $400,000. We have had a bill just came in for the election, which was over $1 million. The combination of these and other items has put the ability to make our debt coverage ratio at risk. And the reason I bring it to the board today is that effective immediately in regard to the staff and activities I control, we're going down on an austerity program. All travel, attended a conference as a staff will be curtailed other than the contract cities we're already committed to. There'll be no staff at Aqua this year or any of the other conferences. We're trying to do everything we can. I have a meeting with senior staff at 3 o'clock today to go through any expenditures that we curtail. We need to save $200,000 or $300,000 to increase our margin at the end of the year. Why? Because if we do not make our debt coverage ratio this year after refinancing bonds in November, and with the commitment at that time, and a margin of safety that we thought we couldn't possibly blow, if we do not do that, then we're liable to getting downgraded once more to junk bonds, and I just can't let that happen if it's possible. So as for the board's cooperation, we'll give a detailed report at the Finance Committee coming up on this, but this is a serious situation. We're taking it seriously. I just want to give you a heads up today. Any questions?
Questions, anyone?
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 15, legislative update.
President Apodaca, you need a motion for that one? Consent calendar, item number 7. Item number 7 requires that you move for it.
Motion.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Okay, so you need a first and
Roll call.
second.
Second.
Director Chacon, Director Hellman,
Aye.
Director Reedy,
Aye.
Hawkins. Director Osuli, Director Vasquez, Director Camacho Rodriguez. Aye. President Apodaca.
Aye. Item 15, legislative update.
Excuse me, we have item 13, 14.
Item 13, approval to pay Nusselman LLP legal advice.
As you're aware, the board has a rule that any legal bill over $25,000 has to come before the board. In the last month, a Nosselman's bill exceeded that solely because of the litigation that we're involved in. Other than that, the operational costs were well within the $25,000. And the expenditures that were spent on the litigations were totally appropriate at the time. So I've asked the board's approval for the amount over $25,000. And if there are any questions, we'd like to answer, remembering that some of these cases are litigation and we don't want to go into the details in public.
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
Director Chacon, Director Hellman,
Aye.
Director Rigi, Director Hawkins,
Yes.
Director Osuli, Director Camacho Rodriguez. President Apodaca.
Aye. Item 14, discussion approval of the sole source contract with Phillips Financial Consultants Incorporated.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is a shortened version of the presentation that staff conducted at the Finance Committee, Admin and Finance Committee earlier this month, and the Purveyors Workshop last week related to the water rate study and the fixed meter charge. So today we're going to discuss the board potentially considering adoption of a water rate study to assist in the development of the fiscal 2020 budget. So the water rate study that we're proposing to perform is really a cost of service study, and it's going to recommend various options as it relates to a new fixed meter charge, other fixed and variable rates, fees and charges as it relates to the water sales that we produce at the district, namely the recycled, potable, or replenishment rates. And in addition, it allocates all the district's expenses, whether it's admin, IT, HR, finance, all those different departments to those rates. So before us today, we're considering Raftellus. Raftellus is a nationally recognized water rate study consulting firm that's conducted thousands of water rate studies for water, wastewater, stormwater. Personally, I've reviewed and attended their presentation at the Municipal Water District of Orange County. They also conduct numerous workshops, of which I attended one in downtown Los Angeles, on conducting water rate studies. And in the audience today, we have Mr. Sanjay Gar. He is a vice president there and has a long litany of, he has an MBA from Harvard and has helped in the conducting AWWA guidebooks and the manual of M1 principles of water rates. So we have him for questions. One of the things I want to discuss briefly is staff's recommendation for using a sole source for Raftellus. In the past, they've been competitively selected. In addition, last year, the board approved them conducting a water rate study and for about $33,000. And lastly, the RFP process would take multiple months, and that would then impact the adoption of the district's budget and the individual purveyors that we represent. It would definitely affect their budget and probably would delay implementation of all those budget items past the beginning of the fiscal year. So those are some of the reasons why we're asking for this sole source contract with Raftellus. So on the recommended motion is that the board authorizes the general manager to execute a sole source contract with Raftellus for the preparation of a water rate study and a total contract amount not to exceed $35,000. These are from, this $35,000 will come from retasked budgeted district funds within the district's finance department. And as next steps go, the presentation and update on the progress of the water rate study, including various options that the board can consider, will be presented at the April Admin and Finance Committee. So with that, that concludes my presentation. I'll be willing to answer any questions.
No questions. Your motion.
So moved.
Second. Roll call, please.
Director Chacon, Director Hellman,
Aye.
Director Riki,
Aye.
Director Hawkins, Director Schooling, Director Vasquez, Director Camacho Rodriguez. President Apodaca.
Aye. Item 15, legislative update.
Alrighty, good morning, directors. Talking about item 15, this month's legislative update. I'd first like to, if you are at your agenda item, it's on page 185 of your packet, briefly discuss the legislative calendar. And reason being is because there's significant interest from the district as it relates to some of the public policy moving through the state legislature at this time. Of note with regards to next month, our April 26th, that is the last day for policy committees to hear and report to fiscal committees fiscal bills introduced in their house. So any policy that has a price tag on it. May 3rd, last day for policy committees to meet and report to the floor non-fiscal bills introduced in their house. So those are two dates that we're keeping an eye on as it relates to committee hearings that we're going to be keeping attention on are the Assembly Committee on Local Government, the Assembly Committee on Water, Parks, and Wildlife, the Senate Committee on Natural Resources and Water, and the Senate Committee on Governance and Finance. And I'll share with you in a few minutes why. Some of the key policy issues taking place, well, the major policy issue is that of dealing with the Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Fund, which was an issue that was brought up last year in the form of Senate Bill 626 by Bill Monning. The bill itself died late in the session. What it would have done is, in some broad scopes, instituted a per meter charge to provide support for those communities that lack access to clean drinking water, to fund operations and maintenance. This was a proposal that, while in concept in terms of what it was going to support, was supported by members of the water community, but opposed in terms of how they were going to go about funding it. The Association of California Water Agencies has proposed a safe drinking water trust set up with investment from with funds from the general fund. That is now in the form of Senate Bill 669 by Ana Caballero from the Central Valley. There are a couple of different proposals that we're keeping an eye on as it relates to this issue. One is Assembly Bill 217 by Eduardo Garcia from the Coachella Valley, which represents a bit hybrid approach, which would include some of the funds from the general fund included, put into like in a separate fund, sort of like an investment, in addition with a per meter fee. In looking through the legislation, the per meter fee itself has not been detailed out yet. Senate Bill 200 by Bill Monning. There's no fee structure in the current version of the bill, but essentially achieves many of the goals of Senate Bill 626. Then there's also Senate Bill 414 by Ana Caballero, also called the Small System Water Authority Act, which in addition to looking at the funding aspect with regards to some of these these communities that lack access to drinking water would look at the potential for consolidation of systems that are not able to provide safe drinking water. And it would go through a process in which the state board would engage with the local water district, give them some time to come up with a remediation plan. If they were unable to successfully put together a remediation plan, look at consolidation with the neighboring district, or if you were in a community where there were 5 or more failing districts, look at setting up a small authority. So that's a variety of the ways that this issue is being looked at this year. We know that it's a priority for the governor. He included language in a trailer bill in his budget proposal in January. There was an all-day hearing on this in February, and there will be continued discussion and hearings on this as the month of April moves forward. And that's why I wanted to point out those hearing dates, because we're going to be hearing a lot about these issues. As it relates to the district, there are 2 bills of note that would impact the Central Basin Municipal Water District. First is Assembly Bill 591 by Cristina Garcia, which has been referred to the Assembly Committee on Local Government. Essentially, this would be a cleanup bill for Assembly Bill 1794 and would clarify on the definition of what a representative would be as it relates to an appointed board member. So it would be amended to identify a representative to be a consultant or contractor of an entity. And that, what goes without saying is that someone who's an employee is already considered a representative of that particular entity, or to identify a board member of an entity that is a mutual water company. This bill itself is non-fiscal, so it has about a week later to get through the policy committee process. It's been referred to committee, but there's not a date yet. It's not on agenda yet, but we're keeping an eye on that, and as that moves forward, we'll keep the board apprised. Also is Assembly Bill 1220, as Tammy had referred, which really the idea was how do we go about ensuring our region's representation on the Metropolitan Water District Board of Directors. This bill has been referred to the Assembly Committee on Local Government. It would protect the district's 2 seats on the MWD Board of Directors by setting a floor on the seats that Met currently has as of January 1st, 2019. This would not impact the weighted voting or supersede the appointment by a set valuation. Over the past several weeks, there's been conversations in which Tammy and Kevin have taken the lead on meeting with our member agencies and having conversations about a best approach. There was a compromise reached between us, the Assembly Member's Office, and Met on a approach, and we're going to have some conversations with Met and the Member's Office by tomorrow to make sure to kind of put a final stamp of making sure we're all on the same page before this goes to committee. And that is, actually and briefly, we also had the opportunity to participate in Aqua DC, in which one of the key issues in discussion was that of cybersecurity. We had the opportunity to meet with the offices of Congressmember Gomez, Congressmember Lowenthal, and also met with the office of Senator Feinstein, as well as with Congresswoman Roybal Allard. And one of the key things is we're going to keep an eye on is those potential funding opportunities as they relate to district projects. And then lastly is Aqua Sacramento. We had the opportunity to follow up with Assemblymember Garcia, and both of these in conjunction with both Dr. Camacho Rodriguez and I. And one of the the main focus of the conference at that time was that of safe and affordable drinking water. And unless there are any questions, welcome any feedback. Alrighty. Thank you.
Item 16, employees' medical benefits for calendar year 2020.
Good morning, directors. To give you a little bit of background, this is an information item. I want to make you aware of some potential changes coming down as it relates to medical coverage. As you know, we changed from Aqua JPIA back in 2018 to CalPERS to save district money with regards to medical premiums. At the time, we were anticipating about $100,000 in savings. However, in 2019, this year, for premiums for this year, the PERS board decided to increase their PPO plan by changing the way they allocate the increases to all of their PPO plans. That being said, the increase that we saw for our most utilized plan was about 19.8%. That's for this year. For next year, we're anticipating, and we already know from PERS, that the increase will be an additional 18%. The main reason we had changed from ACWA JPIA to CalPERS was because they were comparable plans as far as the PPO plans and the HMOs plans are concerned. And for this reason, we've been in conversation with JPIA staff to see about changing back to ACWA JPIA effective January 1st, 2020. If I could have the next slide, please. This is a comparison showing the coverages. These are costs per month for different coverage levels. And so you can see for calendar year 2018, CalPERS had a more competitive premium, whereas now in 2020, the cost will be significantly higher than JPIA. This slide shows the comparison with regard to plan benefits. And as you can see, those rows that are highlighted in blue are the items that are pretty much the same. As it relates to the PPO plan, the plan is the same plan. It's just the purchaser that changes from JPIA to PERS. If I could have the next slide, please. Thank you. And this is our second most utilized plan, is our Kaiser HMO plan. And that one pretty much is the same. The only difference is a $5 cost for office visits. We are anticipating that by going back to the JPIA, and we've gotten confirmation that they will take us back, we will be saving about $17,000 for next fiscal year, which is something that we need. And we will be coming back to the board sometime in June or July for an action item as it relates to this. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, but this concludes my presentation.
Questions?
We do have a letter that we can go back, because so many insurance companies have it, once you leave, you can't come back to a certain amount of time. And this is a short amount of time that we've been out.
Yes, and we have confirmation from JPIA via email that they will accept us back. And thank you, Director, for mentioning that for PERS, there is a 5-year exclusion that the district will not be able to come back to CalPERS for 5 years. However, we anticipate staying with JPIA a minimum of 5 years.
Any other questions?
Just a brief comment and a question. Dina, thank you for the presentation. I think it's very informative, and I also want to commend staff on looking for opportunities for cutting and controlling costs. I think that's great. But I just want to add one quick item for consideration for all of us in terms of Central Basin moving forward. In terms of recycled water, there's a 31% increase proposed or acknowledged with a 25% decrease in sales. 50% increase in admin surcharge with an 81% decrease in sales, and a 70% increase in a meter charge with an 81% decrease in sales. All of these are just being mentioned to all of us as a group that we are really in a tough situation, like our general manager mentioned. So it's going to take a lot of effort from everybody in this room and this organization to do what we can and look for opportunities to shave costs and also be as efficient as possible. But I really wanted to commend you on the opportunity. And evident of that, the appointed directors, I don't know how well they're viewed, but are also serving free of charge and bringing to the table, hopefully, some much needed assistance and effort in terms of shaping and directing policy and helping this organization become stronger and more effective. So I just wanted to bring those points up, and I wanted to again thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, directors, for your service, all of you. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Thank you. Item 17, Rio Hondo STEM Battery Project update.
Good morning, directors. This is an update on our battery project that took place at Rio Hondo Pump Station. It was approved a little bit over a year ago. Installation was supposed to be complete in January of last year, November of last year. We had a little bit of a hiccup with the battery as far as the performance. The installation was complete at the time, but the performance of the battery was not operating as it was designed. As a result, STEM agreed to not charge us any fees for that last quarter of last year related to the project. The idea around the battery was to it was to be installed so that it would reduce peaks during the most costly hours of the day and charge overnight when it was less expensive. We have seen that since March 4th when they came out and fixed the battery. We have seen that it's been operating effectively. It has been reducing those peaks. Unfortunately, because we have lower usages, we haven't seen it peak above 300 kilowatts. Our normal usage last year was around 500 kilowatts, but I am happy to say that the battery is operating effectively at this point. The next step is to talk to Southern California Edison about changing our rate. That's where we see the real savings in the project. The changes in the shaving of demands and the demand response program, those represent about $7,000 to $9,000 worth of savings. The change in rate is where we see the biggest savings, and that can be anywhere from $50,000 to $65,000, depending on our usage. Going forward, I did want to bring up a couple pictures to show where the battery is located, how much space it's taking up. I don't know if that effectively does it. The batteries are large. They take up about a 12-foot plot, 12 by 5 foot plot, but they're part of our system in the backside. They're not affecting walkways, driveways, or any of those. It's in the backside of the building at the Rio Hondo Pump Station. The other thing I did want to mention is now that we've had the battery online, we're able to see our daily demands, and we are looking at that on a daily basis, and we've actually seen some other operational items that we're taking a deeper look at as far as how our pumps operate, and I know our operations team is working to identify some other ways that we might be able to save costs and lower those peaks as well. Unless there's any questions?
Question. The Tesla batteries, is there a possibility of security that somebody may come and help on with those things?
The good news is because they're being monitored on a 24-hour basis, if we ever see that battery fall off completely, we'll get notified right away. Is there a chance somebody could steal them? Absolutely. We've done best effort. They're surrounded by gate, surrounded by locks. It takes a lot of effort to jump across. We have cameras on them. And also with the WRD project going on right now, there's a 24-hour service there in the front side of the driveway. So any unusual activity, we have a pretty good chance of catching it, but to say that it's not possible would be a lie.
Are they secured to the base somehow?
Oh yeah, they're on cement. They're bolted down and built into the cement. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Director Holmes, didn't you have a question about the cost? A committee?
The program. So the way that the program operates is, as far as the installation, there was no capital cost involved from the district. This was installed with no upfront cost. The way that STEM gets their money back is the battery needs to perform. If it performs as designed, they get half of the savings back from the savings. So it's about $1,700 a quarter over a 15-year period. They take the risk as well. They guarantee the battery life and they guarantee the operations, and they take on the maintenance with that as well.
There's another topic? Just a point of clarification, the battery packs are serving the need to create a peak shaving, correct? When the pumps start, they have a more smooth ramp up rather than, they're not actually supplying power to run, are they?
It's when it starts up, but also when you see the large demand on the. So we have 3 sets of pumps. 2 of them are higher, 500 watt powered pumps. When those start and they are operating at their highest, which is usually overnight, those peaks come down because the battery takes those peaks off. So startup, but also when we're at when we're at mid operation on those pumps, not high. Usually as those pumps ramp up, energy usage actually goes down. It's when they're sitting about the 75 to 80% range where we see demand on the energy go up and down. And the battery is designed to reduce those peaks.
We were looking at a similar program, and one of the things that cost benefits is there's a peaking charge. When your pump starts, you spike that power drop, and then that factor is charged against all of your energy use. So the benefit of this program is to shave that startup cost. So it's a very worthwhile program, so I want to commend on that as well.
Thank you, sir. And yeah, we average about 5 to 7 pump starts a day, so it really reduces.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director.
President, yes, if I could pull item 18, we'll handle it in committee and at the next month's board meeting. Okay.
Counselor?
That brings us to items 19 through 21. 19 is conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation pursuant to Government Code, Section 54956.9D1, Ronald Belkey versus Central Basin Municipal Water District, and those 1 to 100, Los Angeles Superior Court case, number BC 72141. Item 20, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.6D1. People of the State of California, City of Huntington Park versus John Escui, Los Angeles Superior Court case number BC 710389. Item 21, conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4, one item. As a reminder, the Brown Act prohibits the disclosure of confidential information acquired in a closed session by any person present and offers various remedies to address willful breaches of confidentiality. These include injunctive relief, disciplinary action against an employee, and referral of a member of the legislative body to the grand jury. It is incumbent upon all those attending lawful closed sessions to protect the confidentiality of those discussions. Only the legislative body acting as a body may agree to divulge confidential closed session information. As regards attorney-client privilege communications, the entire body is the holder of the privilege, and only a majority vote of the entire body can authorize the waiver of the privilege. Mr. President, we're ready for closed session. The board met in closed session on item 19, 20, and 21. 19 is Ronald Belkey versus Central Basin. No reportable action was taken on item 20. People of the State of California, the City of Huntington Park versus John Escui. No reportable action was taken. And anticipated litigation we initiated. No reportable action was taken. And Mr. President, there's nothing else for me to report except that just as their Nixon Peabody's contract ended, they completed the report on the one complaint that they had received in October. That report is available only, it's a confidential report, and it is available for the directors to review under the circumstances of the board's policy regarding confidential information. Here at the headquarters, no copies available. It is not a public record. That completes my report.
General Manager's report.
Just to make note that April 1st is Cesar Chavez Day and the district's offices are closed.
Director Hawkins, do you have anything to say? No, I think we're doing pretty good. That's all I got. Director Reedy?
Thank you, Mr. President. I will be absent at the April meeting. Elsewhere.
Director Rodriguez?
Just real quick, I had an opportunity to attend Aqua DC in Sacramento with Joseph, and I just wanted to commend Joseph on a great segue into how things are done in Washington and Sacramento, and just basically making me feel very comfortable in how we go to our areas for water information. And so I just wanted to say that as a first-time attendee, it was a great experience. Thank you.
Director Hillman?
Yeah, I just want to say that we completed a Delta tour, and I want to also thank everybody on the staff. They did an excellent job, although we ran into a couple glitches here and there, but I think we recovered really well, and it was a productive opportunity for us to meet and discuss items of importance with the folks in our community, so thank you.
Thank you, and I have no comments. Meeting's adjourned.